Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Q&A we've done in like 2 years. We're here to answer all your questions we posted on Twitter and on the forum, and you guys posted a ton of stuff for us to answer. A lot of good questions.
Now, it's really good because when we first did, the first few of these, everybody was really excited. And now the enthusiasm has waned somewhat, but I think that's a good sign.
Talking about our enthusiasm or their enthusiasm?
Their enthusiasm.
I feel like we got some good questions this time. It wasn't so what we used to get when we first started doing Q&As was like a lot of like, "Hi, I have this very specific question about my very specific setup, and please tell me what to buy." But no one can buy anything right
Still
now.
there. Still plenty
Yeah.
of those. And people answering them, which, Jesus.
It's like me and the puzzles. It's like I just can't help myself. I have to do this.
But the puzzles don't affect other people. You're not inflicting that on others. You are. Chris, I might put a mouse cursor on you today. If so, I'm sorry.
Oh, it doesn't bother me. I don't feel it.
Don't accidentally resize Krista, otherwise the clever cropping that we're doing in OBS is never going to work.
Wendell, something about a biofuel car.
Oh yeah, remember the van? There's a YouTube channel called Tech Wendell, which is just me, and the banner image for the top is a picture of a van that had been modified to reclaim some of the waste heat from the engine to convert it into hydrogen to inject into the fuel injectors. And it actually worked surprisingly well. It would, you would get a few extra miles per gallon. It wasn't like you're going to run the van on water. It was a blah, blah, blah. I didn't do that. I knew a local mechanic that had some questions and maybe about like putting in a control computer so that like when it was, on the highway or the interstate, it would be more aggressive about reclaiming the waste heat because it wasn't worth the effort for like stop and go driving or city driving.
When you said van, I thought you meant Old Faithful, and I was like, "Hang on."
No, it was the mechanic that worked on that, and so like they had a loaner van, and it was like, oh, let's modify the loaner van, and so that was a fun side project many years ago.
And this is an easy one. Have you tried Ukrainian food? I don't think I have.
I might have at Penguicon.
I don't know that I've ever had Ukrainian food.
I watch the Bald and Bankrupt YouTube channel sometimes, and he travels a lot in that part of the world, and the food doesn't look amazing to me.
Yeah, it's not memorable if I have.
There's a lot of stews and
Yeah, I mean those are good, but
goulashes,
yeah. See, I don't know if I've had anything specifically Ukrainian.
a lot of vegetarian stuff.
I thought about this question, and the best answer to it was Ethiopian food. Like, that's a food that I had.
It's a yes or no question. How's the answer Ethiopian food?
Well, so it's like, have you tried Ukrainian food? I don't think so, but if I did, it wasn't very memorable. I was not expecting to like Ethiopian food, but it's actually delicious. But you look at it, and it's very unassuming. So it's what I imagine Ukrainian food looks like, because it looks very unassuming, and because I don't remember it, it probably also tastes unassuming.
But isn't saying that you like or dislike Ukrainian food kind of like saying you like or dislike insert race?
Yeah.
You like that cooks
Yeah.
Ethiopian food.
Do you like American food? And it's like, well, we've got Southern food, and then there's like New York pizza. Oh, and don't get me started on like Chicago deep dish pizza. And then, yeah, so it's probably.
If you ask me if I like Mexican food, I would say yes. But what I mean is I like Americanized Eastern Kentucky Mexican food.
Yeah.
Which probably isn't one-to-one.
Except for the corn tortillas. I love the corn tortillas a lot more than flour tortillas. We've been doing it wrong with flour tortillas this entire time.
Are you saying that our local Mexican restaurants are making a mistake?
They'll
bold.
give you corn tortillas.
How does the team divide time between L1 and other work ventures? How do we divide the work? Basically, Wendell just does his own thing at night when nobody's here and doesn't tell anybody what he's doing.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
And then the news we did on Sundays for a long time. So like Sunday was always really busy, and then it was like, man, we all kind of want a weekend again. So now we film it on Fridays. So if you're always like, how come they didn't cover that story? That's because we film it on Fridays.
And you should also subscribe to Patreon, where you get the news only one day behind.
What are your thoughts on the Rust programming language? I've not used it a ton, but from what I've read about it, it seems very efficient.
It seems nice for like device drivers and operating system-y things.
Yeah, low-level stuff seems to be the way to go, but I'm not really done a ton with it.
I've used Go more than Rust, and what I have used for Go, I really like Go, but Go is built to make web services basically. I mean, you don't want to stereotype. Is that like being racist for languages? It's like that language is only used for this. It's like
no, because machines or the equivalent really can be built to a purpose. It's not the same as saying, well, that person's just made for kidneys.
Whoa. China would like to know your location.
They've entered the chat.
Considering increasing core count, what will change for us as users when we reach the point where we'll have 1,024 core CPUs under the hood? I gotta doubt it'll get to that point.
Yeah, I don't. Amdahl's law, so there's a point of diminishing returns.
But also you have to think about, before we get to that insane number, I think we will have crossed over into like quantum computing or something that we don't know yet.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the future. You're never going to predict what new thing will come along and replace everything.
We need more control over like the lithography process because, we lose electrons. There's a lot of electrons in a processor that go to heat. They all go to heat. But some of them do something useful before they go to heat. And it would be nice to have a process that's a little bit more efficient about, laying down the highways that electrons can sort of make their way through that doesn't end up making them all entirely heat before you get a useful calculation.
Thunderbolt shenanigans, I don't know. It's inside baseball. It doesn't deserve an answer, but give it one.
No, he's talking about where I did Thunderbolt on
I know,
Threadripper.
but it's not a
question.
There's no question.
There's no progress.
But I'm saying, oh no, there's no progress. Okay, good. That's the answer to it. Spaces are tabs. I am doggedly tabs, but Python and ultimately YAML has broken me. I've given up.
I prefer tabs as well because it's easier to read, but I also don't work in white space sensitive languages, so.
You know how we're working on that thing that does like all the automation and stuff? I made a bunch of changes from like the code standpoint, and it kept not working, and I kept like reverting, and I was like, I'm in the zone. It's a rare programming. Like I can do no wrong. Everything here is working great. And then it mysteriously stopped working. I was like, that's weird. So I kept stepping back through my changes until I undid almost the entire day's worth of work. I forgot that I had changed something in a YAML file, and that was why it was failing.
Oh.
That's a pain in the ass. I gotta say. But yeah,
It's like, I'm just going to go have a drink and just pretend this day never happened.
Yeah.
I know that's a preference thing, but if you're just getting into this, don't use tabs because you'll be punished for it later. I think it's more efficient. But, yeah.
A lot of editors will just quietly substitute your tabs now, too. It's like you hit tab, but it typed 4 spaces.
But then there's the argument of 2 or 4. Got to be 2. If it's 4, sorry. Even if you're doing the space replacement, you're going to get screwed.
But it's so much nicer to look at when there's spaces so you can like see how everything's nested.
I like it, too, when you go to a web page and it's like the HTML file, it's like you want to look at the performance part of it. And it's like, wow, this is like 150 kilobytes of HTML, and you view the source, and it's all like perfectly indented and stuff, and it was all indented with spaces, and so like 3/4 of the file is white space, and it's like, oh, yeah. Sweet.
Also, that Vim indent spacing, everything about the new Vim, I hate with a passion. Visual mode and that indented copy paste. Oh, who thought that was a good idea? When I'm on a new system, I have to build a vimRC immediately because it's unusable.
Yeah.
This is a really broad question. Any old tinkering stories with some examples? I think, well, maybe not. Christy, you ever clean a mouse ball?
Yeah, that was the thing I had to do in elementary school. It'd be like you'd be working on like your little typing simulator, and it was like, oh, the mouse is being weird. And it's like, oh, you got to take the thing out and get the dust out.
And you got to take like an X-Acto knife or a razor blade or something and get in there and scrape those rollers too. Just cleaning the ball wasn't enough. You had to scrape your rollers.
Do you remember the really amazing feeling of like using a clean mouse and it's like, oh, it tracks so well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, when you get over a cold and there's a very small window where you just appreciate breathing.
Yeah, and you can smell again.
That first optical mouse was maybe a week, would you say?
Yeah.
And then you got used to it. But during that week, you were like, oh, my God. How great is this? Installing Windows 2000, you guys realize that like we lived through Windows 2000, right? I mean,
Windows 95 on floppies cost more because of the sheer number of floppies that it came with versus a CD.
so I don't know how old this gentleman is, but yeah.
I remember helping poor people in Eastern Kentucky install Windows 95 from floppies, and they just did not treat floppies with the respect they deserve. On disk 37, and it was just like, can't read. I was like, well, you're done.
And one of the big things is like going to people's houses because they ordered the internet because you told them how cool it was, but it was like, wait, what is this WinSock?
Yeah, your computer doesn't even support file names longer than 8 characters. What am I supposed to do here?
Changing textures in some old games. I'll admit this, and this was, 15, 16-year-old Ryan, he made some mistakes. One of those mistakes that he feels bad about was going into the Quake Team Fortress when it was just a mod and putting, like, always visible lines on the textures. Because you could cheat that way. I did that.
Oh,
Yeah.
unsportsmanlike.
Yeah. I also made a sound pack for Team Fortress, which was just me and my friends making all the noises. And it cracked us up. I wish I still had that.
I did the Monty Python sound pack for Doom. I never had the pay for version of Doom for like a year. And so like there were all these really fun mods, but I had the Monty Python one is, help, I'm being repressed. I think I had that before I even knew what Monty Python was. And you couldn't download, video or anything like that from the internet in those days. It was just like the tiniest, shortest little clips. And what hooked me on Monty Python was the parrot sketch. I downloaded it was like a 160 by 120 movie, which took hours on a thing, and it was like and it was just like, what even is this sound effect? Because it was like the most popular sound pack on the BBS, and I was like, I don't get it. Why is this funny? I mean, it's funny, but it's like, there's something more going on here. And then there was a discussion about it, and then there was a link to the parrot sketch, and then I downloaded the parrot sketch, and that's how I discovered Monty Python modifying Doom. So that was fun.
I got a hold of a Monty Python CD, and before I knew what they were exactly, and this is another weird thing for young people. Like, there was a time when you would know maybe even the name of something, but not have a lot of information on it. And the one that like convinced me that most of them I was like, I don't get this. But the one that really got me was this. I'm not gonna say the word, but female genitalia. They got a song that's just named that.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious. Just in the inflections in the singing. Krista, you have to have a story about like crafting and modifying things, right? As a young girl.
In the same vein you guys were talking about with sound packs, I had an Invader Zim sound pack for our Windows computer growing up. My mom was like, the first time she turned it on after I did that, she was like, why is it making that sound? Is there a virus on here? And I was like, no, because that was like the first computer we ever bought. It was very expensive. She thought something was wrong with it. I was like, no, isn't that cool? And she was like, turn it back, take it off.
I don't know what that is.
Or you do
no, the name of the name of the thing. I don't recognize the
Invader Zim. You never watched that growing up?
Oh,
it was a cartoon, yeah.
That one.
And then another similar sort of story that probably got me into design was we got our first computer and we had Microsoft Word on it. And the first thing I ever made with it was a series of posters to convince the ice cream man to come down my street because they didn't for a long time.
That worked.
And so I did like clip art and stuff and was like, ice cream man, come down this way. I will buy your ice cream. And it worked. He did start coming down that street.
I had the same thing with the Schwann's man, but then it was like, sweetie, we can't afford Schwann's. So I was like, oh, okay.
Oh.
You should have done that, Krista. And then when he finally came, you should have looked over the menu and be like, nah. What advice for an idiot who is trying to learn to code in a non-IT background?
I saw several of those questions. Somebody said that they were working in
that's weve.
In the healthcare thing too.
Yeah.
Well, he says finance.
Oh yeah, it was several people had a variation of that question.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to mess with finance, I would start with get a TD Ameritrade account and mess with their API, because if you already understand finances, you understand things, like option chains and spreads and stuff like that. And once you start reading their API, you'll probably understand, it's like, oh, I would like to pull that information. And I know they offer it in PHP, but they offer it, I think, in several languages. So you could choose any one of those languages as your starting language.
There's a guy that we know that has some kind of this dashboard that he pays like $1,000 a month for, and it's literally just to drag and drop the different APIs, including Ameritrade, so that he can get charts and graphs of like whatever metric.
Yeah. And you have to have a money account with them before they let you touch that API. You're not going to get free financial data from anybody, unfortunately.
But there's nothing, even if you're not in finance,
Not legally.
there's nothing that you can learn by doing. There's so much good stuff.
But see, I think I understand the question is like, I have a desire, but this is such a large onion. I don't know where to start peeling.
Yeah.
And so for a first project, I would say, and that's a great thing about programming languages, that you don't have to compile. So start with one of those that can hit that API, and you can very quickly have a little like 40-line program that actually does something.
Python might be a better choice in that regard.
I'm sure they have a Python API. Well, but it's all just REST API anyway. So it doesn't matter what, as long as you're using a language that can hit that easily. I'm struggling to find a balance between how many things I should learn and how deep I should go. What qualifications should a good engineer have?
Depends on your industry.
It's dependent. Yeah, it's dependent on a lot of different things. But I will say this: if you spend a lot of time on breadth versus depth, you risk very quickly the things that you learned no longer mattering. Whereas if you learn depth, you're probably going to understand it more and be able to relate that to the next thing that you have to learn. It sounds like, oh yeah, CS undergraduate. Well, here's the bad news.
You know nothing.
You're going to learn less in college than your first 6 months of working, but you're never going to get to stop. It's always ongoing.
I would say that, would you say that this statement is true with that though? That we've learned so much about some industries that it's been very difficult for us to resist the temptation to just do what we think is necessary for that industry to produce something that's disruptive and also probably wildly profitable. It's like you get to a certain depth and it's like, wow, everybody's doing it the most dumb way possible. Let's do a better job.
Yeah. And that is, to go back to the question about where to start, if you already know how something works and you can apply technology to it, I mean, like Wendell's saying, you can pretty much invalidate entire companies, at least people.
It's a dark superpower.
Go away or I will replace you with a very small shell script. It's a real thing.
Basically, do we work together or separately? We work together.
Yeah.
We don't
Mostly.
work together. That's actually how we met. Someone else asked that.
We work together on separate projects.
That's not even true. I mean, because,
Brian and I are working on something together right now.
Yeah, for the most part, Krista does most of the designs at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have our roles, but we don't have concrete roles.
Yeah.
And basically, we're at the point where when people come to us and they say, I want X, we say, no, you want Y. And here's why you want Y. And here's how we're going to do it.
Now give us your money.
Yeah. And sometimes they don't give us their money.
Sometimes they don't, but a lot of times they do, which is nice.
Sometimes they don't. They're like, 6 months down the road, they come back and they're like, how did you know? And it's like, this is not our first rodeo.
You only have to make the mistake once.
Yeah. It really is crazy how often that has happened. I mean, if you think about like a 10-year time span, like in the beginning, it was like, oh, you obviously know what you want and you're doing stuff. And it's like, yes, I will go along with you, even though I don't really understand what you're asking for. It doesn't make sense. And then anymore, it's like, oh, you're kind of blunt and direct there. And it's like, yes, I've already built a Facebook for ski enthusiasts only. And that is like the dumbest idea that there has ever been.
Yeah, there's nothing more awkward than having to go into a client meeting and they're like, I want to have Twitter, but for deer. And it's like, no, we're not doing that.
And sometimes, you're turning down. You could take their money easily, and we could churn out the garbage that they're asking for in a very small amount of time. But then the problems will never stop. They'll never stop complaining. They might not pay you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not worth the hassle.
You have to be very cautious about that kind of thing. And but that is the other advantage of not just freelancing on your own. Is that, like, for example, somebody comes to me and is like, hey, you ever use this payment processor? Yeah. Oh, okay. Show me where you had that. And then they can go and they can look through a working example of that. And it's all under like one big giant server, which is super convenient. So you have the memory of all the mistakes still there.
Years later.
What is something software developers should do better?
Document.
Well, comments,
Please.
That's the cliche answer. And it is always true. And I'm guilty of not doing it enough. But I would say the bigger one here is like human communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's hard.
It's amazing how
hard,
many,
though.
even like the people that we work with, like we will get different conflicting direction. Like it's like, okay, here's something that vaguely fits the parameters that we have been given. And then like the first wave of feedback has nothing to do with like the second and third waves of feedback, which are completely different directions. And it's like, okay, it's pretty obvious that 3 different people looked at this and have 3 different ideas of how this is supposed to work. Can we try this again? And then people get a little offended.
And one of the biggest things that drives me crazy, and maybe this is just me, is that a lot of people in this field are socially awkward and physically unimpressive. And the only chance they get to flex on anybody is this. And they never stop. And you get 2 of them in a room together, and it's just a feedback loop. And it drives me out of my mind.
I still remember that lunch several years ago.
They're not doing well. So I think we dodged a bullet there.
They were trying to get us to engage with it. Everyone was just kind of like, I'm just going to eat my food, dude.
If only someone could have recognized that early on.
Sorry.
Oh, you're talking about something different. I'm talking about the problem that we had here in the building for a very long time. Are you talking about the other one not doing
Yeah,
well?
I was talking about the other one.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't surprise me. But those guys weren't like that. I think they were kind of imposter a little bit, don't you think?
I don't know.
They were like kind of be a little lewd. They're kind of dick measury in that conversation.
But I felt like the crap they were talking didn't have a lot of structure behind it.
Yeah. Anymore, I'm just like, I don't even care. I just want to get something done.
Can you show us your server racks? Isn't there a video?
Yeah, we have an office tour, but we haven't. We need to do a new office tour at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, 45 Drives is going to send us some new storage, so that's nice. That'll be something to look forward to, because it's going to be a fun video. I'm honestly very excited about that, because our storage server is basically full, and we did the video on that a while ago, and that was good. It was made from garbage. We made it this far on garbage. How exciting is that?
What hardware tools do you have to have around that you just can't do without?
I really like the iPad Pro and the pencil specifically. Right. Yeah. Pencil's great, especially like when you're out like doing client meetings and stuff, like to be able to just sketch something real fast and like either send it to them digitally later, like that's great. Excellent.
I guess you have to have some kind of laptop or portable something for meetings. Although a lot of times it just sits there.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll make notes, but sometimes I don't need to. In terms of, they also mentioned software, I do like to have a nice SSH manager. I think that's good for sanity if you spend a lot of time connecting to web servers.
I've been doing benchmarking on so many different machines that I've put a couple of files out on the internet where I can just request them, but they're just configuration files. There's nothing sensitive in them, and it'll download them like your vimrc and bash configuration and some other stuff, and that's really handy. Taking care of this place, there's no end of, it's like, oh, I need another kind of specialized tool. Oh, how exciting, whatever. I've got a lot of very special tools for working on the boiler. Like, one of my favorites is I've got a spud wrench.
I think this is more in terms of IT career. You probably won't have to do a lot of boiler maintenance in your average IT job or programming job.
It's hard to find a good spud wrench. I had to special order one from Taiwan, which is crazy because I guess they're still using boilers in Taiwan.
I think they're pretty common everywhere outside the U.S.
What type of work do you mostly do? Whatever someone will pay us for.
Yeah.
Is basically the answer to that. That does turn out to mostly be web stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the time, because that's what people know that they need. But every once in a while, somebody will have a very specific request.
I just did a bunch of print packaging for a client like a month ago, which is like very rare. I don't do a lot of print work anymore, but that was kind of cool.
If that's the one I'm thinking of, that's another one where it was like this product could be more successful with just a little bit more love and tender direction in the internet side of things. Oh, and it turns out that was correct.
Yeah, and they're working on getting a new website too, so.
It's also true that a lot of traditional desktop software has moved to the web.
Yeah.
A lot of companies are just doing everything on the web now.
Yeah.
And we have several examples that we've worked on of that, where their office is literally just a bunch of computers with web browsers connecting to the website, and that's how they run the entire business.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through if you're looking at getting into that. Things like, PCIe compliance for transaction handling, and then there's like different kind of information handling requirements that you have that you're usually from like the CPA side of the world. So you usually have to work with information consultants or somebody from the finance industry in order to certify things as, yes, this has been built to industry standards. And so that's nice because you can charge more, but it's also terrible in the fact that half of this stuff is not anything that companies are actually doing. It's just a thing to keep other people from making a thing.
And a lot of times people will show up and they'll be like, oh, I have a business. Let's put it online. And then you ask them 10 questions and you can just watch them deflate.
Yeah. I mean, there have been a lot of work that we probably could have made a lot of money on that we turned down just because they're like, we need to, do this thing online. And it's like, okay, but in order to do that, you already have to satisfy all these controls with how you handle other people's data. And it's like, you just go to the network drive and it's like, why is there a 500 megabyte file labeled client social security numbers.txt?
I had to explain to many people many times, you can't just ask for people's social. Like, you just don't do that.
That's not okay. What do you mean that's not okay? And then they get all weird and angry.
Yeah.
And some clients actually go the other direction, where the level of security and the hoops that you have to jump through just to do business with them is crippling. But they usually know that, so they pay for it. Krista, have you seen the link here? They're talking about, like, what they want to know what you wear when gardening. Yeah.
I usually just wear like my old hiking clothes, but honestly, a pair of overalls would be great for when I'm doing stuff in the woods, so I could treat those with permethrin, because the ticks have become a problem already this year.
What about a straw hat or a bonnet?
I went to Lowe's yesterday and I saw a straw hat and I was like, do I need that? And then I was like, no, I don't. I've got a baseball cap. Don't make this weirder than it needs to be.
It's not in the same spirit, Krista.
It's not, but I've already got the baseball cap.
What kind of baseball? Does it have a logo on it?
No, it's just a plain old, just gray hat. I treat it with permethrin to keep the ticks out of my hair.
My mental image of you is very blurry except for your gloves, which are at least 4 sizes too large for your hands.
They are. I have a pair of garden gloves. They are too big. They are covered in flowers, though. Like, it's printed. They're very pretty.
I was imagining, like, the leather oven mitt type gloves where it's just comically large. It's like in Arrested Development, the lawyer guy where he's wearing the fake rubber hands like that, but leather glove version.
My husband bought a pair of like leather ones, and I was like, you didn't want floral? I don't understand.
But when the gloves are too big, stuff gets down in them.
Yeah.
That's really unpleasant. I was weed eating the other day, and I kept getting stuff in my shoes. And I was like, oh, what's going on with this? And I just sort of powered through it. When I got done, I realized the pants I was wearing had elastic around the ankles, and it had formed a perfect curve so that the debris hit it and went straight down into my shoes.
Oh.
And when I pulled my foot out of my shoes, there was just a giant pile of grass clippings. That's a bad design for pants, for yard work. We ever revived the Level 1 Enterprise channel?
I mean, don't we have enough server videos and other stuff? I mean, the Linux channel has a lot of, like, how to configure MariaDB and how to make your Epic server go even faster. And did you know that Turbo's not turned on?
I don't think that there's any avoiding that content when it becomes available on the other channels.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to separate them. What's the most you'd spend on a pair of headphones? $350, because that's what I paid for my Hi-Fi Man headphones.
I paid $20 for mine.
Is that your max?
That's probably not my max, but these ones have worked, so I've never bothered to replace them.
I don't know. It probably wouldn't be more than like $100 or $200. I don't think I've ever paid for a pair of headphones.
Well, you don't like music.
Well, yeah, I like to go on flights, though.
Yeah, but the quality of the headphones doesn't matter if you're listening to voice or something.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
I did. Somebody gave me a pair of the Bose noise-canceling headphones, and the noise-canceling thing is nice on flights. But, in terms of, like, how good do they sound? I really can't tell much of a difference.
Yeah, when you're not listening to music, it's kind of pointless. I mean, maybe, I guess if you're going to watch movies with headphones.
I've done that on flights, and it's been fine.
I don't know. The headphone thing is definitely. Some people are willing to spend it, and other people think it's absolutely insane. I guess that's true of a lot of things in life, isn't it? Are there going to be any events like LAN meetups or conventions? I don't think we have any plans for one.
Should we just bank on LTX? I think Wendell, we were talking about this the other day. Wendell was planning on doing Computex, but Computex got canceled, so rip.
Yeah, and I think LTX is canceled at this point as well. So maybe next year, if LTX is on and we're invited, I'm at least going. You guys are definitely welcome.
Now, I might consider that.
Vancouver's fun.
Can y'all do Drunk News twice a year? I mean, I guess we could. I don't know if we will.
Share this video far and wide to help us get the views up on all our other videos, and we'll talk.
Do you have any interesting stories about ISAs with weird niche? Oh, you spelled niche wrong. Or hidden instructions? I don't.
I mean, x86 has tons of hidden instructions, but like, that's not. I did a video a long time ago you can check out on memcopy. Intel's microcode is doing black magic to make 32-bit memory copy operations use SIMD instructions, which is incredible.
Do you think we'll ever get fiber to the home in over 99% of U.S. households?
Maybe when it's obsolete.
Not in our lifetime, maybe?
Not as long as the incumbents are in charge. AT&T is fighting tooth and nail to avoid this. I mean, they literally took taxpayer money saying this is going to be the greatest thing ever, and then now they're like, no.
If you could snap your fingers and fix anything in the world, but you couldn't directly take advantage of it, what would you fix? I'd probably do the Thanos thing. I think population is the biggest problem we have.
I don't know how, like, we'd have to figure out a way to do it where, like, half of people didn't suddenly disappear, but, like, population versus resource control as the thing to solve would be the thing to solve.
It's turn signals and how long you take at a green arrow to turn. That's the two things, and we would eliminate probably 3/4 of the population with that. Although there would still be non-driving assholes running around. We'd have to think about that.
How would you explain that to the Infinity Crystals? It's like, all right, we're going to snap half of people out of existence, but here's the criteria. You have to look through the history of each individual.
This program's going to run for a year. So we're going to warn you up front. It's like, listen, here's the game. And we're not going to tell you exactly how we're measuring it. We're just going to be like, don't be like that on the road anymore. Follow all the social construct rules while driving. And people would probably work it out in month 2, I think. They see that car just slowly rolling into the guardrail.
And then it just evaporates.
No, the car would still be there. It would just be empty.
Another one that would be a good answer for that question would be like just funding for schools, because none of us have kids, but I like to live in an educated world, so.
But I don't agree with the Department of Education at all. I wouldn't give them anything. Unless you fix that, I wouldn't say that fixes anything.
It would be nice to have access to high quality education, because I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I drove everyone that was willing to babysit me or to be around me completely insane, asking like why and why does that work that way, and I don't understand, and will you show me this, and why shouldn't I stick my hand into a running lawnmower engine? Oh, that's why.
But modern children do have that.
Yeah.
So they're probably not taking advantage of it.
They would, well, yeah. It needs a better interface. I don't know. It would have been a while before I got the hang of it, I think.
I don't know. Anything I don't know how to do on my house or my lawn equipment or to some extent my vehicles, I know I can teach myself. I can learn that at any time. And so can everybody else with an internet connection.
I really kind of think that in general is going to be disruptive to the economy, because I don't think that $150 an hour plumbers is sustainable.
As long as people are not willing to get their hands dirty, it'll be sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is you got to think about how much are those people. All right. Here's a crazy. This has nothing to do with our question and answer, but apparently, we're just going to sit here forever. So,
it's fine.
Here's a question for the two of you. What is the average U.S. income?
$35,000 a year?
Yeah, say like 30.
Oh, I'm sorry, not income, net worth.
Oh.
It's probably negative.
Yeah.
Like negative easily.
So the median net worth is between $90,000 and $120,000. The average net worth is $750,000. Because the rich people skew it so hard.
So high.
They skew it $500,000, more than $500,000.
That is crazy.
Because most people I know are in debt, which is sad.
Doesn't that mean we need to eat the rich or something?
Because the net worth is assets minus debt. So you could have debt but still have a net worth that's
Yeah.
decent because you got a house or whatever. What books do you recommend in the computer science, programming, and business space? Man, I don't know if I would have any like perennials at this point because everything changes.
What book
so
is
quick.
timeless?
Yeah.
Maybe the Nuth books, the Donald Nuth books, The Art of Computer Programming. Those are generally pretty timeless. But like I'm thinking about like even the classics like the Andy Tenenbaum books on networking and stuff like that. I mean, those are kind of dated at this point.
Yeah. You will anything to do with hardware. And it's I don't know if you would even because how many physical books have you invested in and never really gotten all you can out of them?
The design pattern books are also really good. There's like design patterns in blah because those are just algorithms and it's like this is how you do this and this is how you should think about this kind of a problem and wouldn't it be neat to handle state this way? But other than that, yeah, go ahead.
I would recommend, this is more the design space, but a book called, I pre-vetted it and brought it out. It's called Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. Some of it is catered more toward comic books, but a lot of it goes over really basic like storytelling techniques and just visual things like gestalts and those kind of concepts, but it's done in a really easy to understand way.
I need
There's
that.
a lot of examples.
I've been reading stuff like that to try to better understand how to organize my thoughts into a video because it's very apparent that my brain doesn't translate well into a video.
Into visual medium, I guess. It's hard to know what to edit out a video, I think, because there's so much to cover.
If you could not be in the IT design field, what would you be doing instead? I haven't really thought much about that.
Plumbing or electrical, probably.
The other aptitude I suppose I had in school was writing, but I took one look at writing salaries.
Yeah.
As you know, I mean, you could write novels, I guess, and if you're popular, that hits. But just writing as, like, even technical writing. When we were in school, everything was in demand, but technical writing, and if you could speak Spanish, which I can't, but I'm sure I could learn it, they're like, oh, listen, learn Spanish and get into technical writing, and you can go wherever you want. There's too much of a lack of this. But you don't make a lot of money, and God, it sounds boring.
Yeah.
The really nice thing with technical stuff is that you can work from anywhere, and companies are finally getting clued into that.
Yeah,
so like,
and that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you could do anything you want anywhere.
This is a
If
question.
you had to move out of Kentucky, where would you go? Another state or country?
I wouldn't go anyplace expensive.
Yeah.
I think it's stupid to live in an expensive place if you're like us and you don't really care about the events that happen in your city.
I liked Washington State, and once you get like an hour or two outside of Seattle, it's pretty reasonably priced.
I liked Maine when we went up there for our honeymoon, but it's pretty pricey.
Yeah, but you
well.
went.
But it's awesome though. Yeah,
you went during a nice
I've only
season.
been in the summer, so I'm sure it would be brutal in the winter. But it was the nice area, and like it kind of reminded me of like Kentucky Light in that it seems like a lot of people, especially in like the more rural areas, just kind of want to be left alone to do their own thing, which I appreciate.
Could you get an antique Japanese sword to open boxes with? We could.
That's something we could spend the Patreon money on that we're not going to do.
I think it would be funny. I could go down to the secondhand store and get a katana made out of aluminum for $15. You wouldn't know the difference on the video, probably.
And we'll just tell them that it's a 500-year-old. Yeah, just
Glorious Nippon steel.
I've opened a couple of boxes with the Itanium CPU, which is kind of a collector's item, and there were people spurging out in the comments on that. It's like, do you know how hard those ought to get? That's a collector's item. Don't do that. It's like, dude, it's an Itanium. Like, this is not. It's just, who cares?
Is it thundering where you guys are?
Yes, it is.
I just heard that mic. It picked up on your guys' mic.
I was supposed to be painting the siding on my house to get ready for the new roof today, and yet
Here we are.
Krista, I think you've actually answered this before. What is your dream backpacking trip? Where to?
I would really like to go visit the Bob Marshall Wilderness in Montana. I've seen some videos on it. It looks really, really gorgeous, but
it's just it's a lab. It's a university. It's not really anything special. It's just like, here's some real world computer science that is not really covered in a computer science degree. So it's like the blue collar aspects of computer science. I mean, it's not really anything. It's not really anything special.
Windows Home Automation. You've done videos about that, obviously.
Yeah, there's like 4 of them or 5.
I'm not necessarily planning to do that to my house.
I'm not either.
I don't want, because the thing about home automation is it's not something you just set and forget. You have to keep up with it. That's a pain.
Quinn, Snazzy Labs, he did a bunch of videos on his house, which is about as old as mine, and he did all the same things, but he did much nicer videos on all the stuff that he did. You should go check that out, because he also did the Alexa integration, which I'm not willing to do.
Best and worst moments for Wendell in regards to his business. I bet I know the answer to that, but I don't know.
I know the worst one. Yeah.
You know the worst one too, as it turns out, audience.
You think that's worse than Secret Service?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
How do you forget about that one? I'm still angry about that. Best and worst moments being YouTubers. I guess we haven't had too many bad things.
I haven't had any really awful moments.
Most memorable fan interaction. So this one was really, I mean, the person didn't know who we were, Krista and I. But when we were first putting the studio together, remember the guy that came and he had some sort of terrible medical condition.
Oh, yeah.
And he was explaining to us, like, he didn't have a job. I think he did, like, odd jobs with tech-related stuff. But he had some sort of, like, social income, welfare type of situation. And he was explaining that to us and how difficult it was to live like that as he had just donated a bunch of money.
Yeah. I was like, don't do that.
And I was like, wow,
don't do that.
Why are you doing that?
Don't do that. We told him not to do that. But we're here for you regardless. It's fine. We don't need that.
I always like it when we get when I do like a Patreon drawing for someone and they send like a message like, oh, this is great. Like those are always nice, memorable interactions. Those are pleasant.
I got a lot of unsolicited hugs that I remember very well.
Positively or negatively?
Well, I was sort of terrified the first 3 or 4 times that it happened.
What was the ratio of genders for those unsolicited hugs?
All male.
How did I know that?
I don't think I've ever been recognized in public. I've been recognized in Overwatch sometimes, which is fun.
If Krista does end up going to whatever this year, please don't give her unsolicited hugs.
Yeah, please don't. It's nothing personal necessarily, but like I like my personal space. So I guess it is kind of personal, but just don't touch people.
You know, the first time that I had been, I did a dine-in to celebrate my my shot at a restaurant, like going into a restaurant.
Oh,
like
okay.
Into the restaurant. Yeah.
Wait, have you done part 2 yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
And that was
50%.
Yeah, it was at the place that I really like, and there was nobody in there. There's never anybody in the parking lot because I would get takeout from there sometimes.
The place that you like that no one else does?
Yes. And
there's a question about that later.
I've been there 2 or 3 times, or 3 or 4 times actually, the last 3 months, 4 months, about once a month. And there's never anybody in the parking lot, but there's usually other people going through the drive-thru to get takeout. And they've been open for probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. And it was the first time that I have been in a restaurant in a year and a half, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And there was one other person. It was like a family, and it was like a girl and a guy and a kid, and they kept looking over, and I was like on the complete other side of the restaurant, and there was nobody else in there. And then after they got done eating, the girl came over and was like, "Are you Wendell?"
Oh my gosh, you got recognized.
Yeah, I did, at the Indian restaurant. So
Oh.
not used to that.
They might be watching right now. Hello,
How's it going?
people from the restaurant.
Yeah, they took a selfie. So they were like, "Can I
Oh.
have a selfie?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
And the question I have for that girl is, why are you going there?
There was a whole family.
Yeah, but the food there is just...
I've discovered mozzarella naan, and it's just the best thing ever.
Why are most of the news articles shown with subscribe now page? Bloomberg does a lot of quality tech news, I'm afraid to admit. Now, you can easily defeat that paywall by turning off JavaScript, but that would break all the other tabs. So when we read them, we don't have any trouble reading them. It's just annoying that you can't see it. And sometimes I do try to do a paywall alternative site, but sometimes only Bloomberg has a decent story about it.
And we also want to avoid, the accusation from Bloomberg that we're like, pirating their material or whatever, because we only show what is actually available to the public.
Yeah, and you should be angry at them, not us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because, and we are hopefully telling you what that story was about, to the point that between that and the one tab, you could find your own alternative if you want to read further.
Or if you're somebody from Bloomberg watching, they should sign up for Bloomberg.
Or, I mean, you could donate us a subscription, but the Bloomberg annual subscription is ridiculous.
Well, even if they donated us a subscription, we're not okay to rebroadcast that on YouTube.
That's probably true. Yeah. So yes, it's annoying, but it's annoying to everybody. That's their business model. A business model of annoyance. Best piece of tech you bought in the last 5 years.
Again, the iPad and the pencil. The pencils. So good.
I really use the Surface a lot. I think I bought that. Well, that was Wendell's secondhand Surface. I bought it from him. I don't know if that was 5 years ago.
If you need new batteries, I've got an extra set of batteries, by the way.
It's always plugged in at this point. I'm trying to think, like, what other stuff?
They say they have non-tech as well. House. 10 out of 10 would recommend buying a house.
I had a fun pandemic project, and that's something that I'll have with me forever. So that was nice.
Yeah, having a
gardening
house
materials
is nice. Also, really enjoy the Corvette.
Like computing.
You mean the Prius, right?
Computing wise, I don't know. I think. Do you remember going to computer shows? Like in college, did you ever do that?
Maybe once or twice.
I went
like the trade shows they'd have at the arena.
It was like twice a year, kind of a thing, for me. And I was so excited because I got a dual Celeron 300A, and that was like the nicest computer that I owned forever. And it wasn't super expensive because it was a Celeron, a Celeron 300A, but you could overclock them to 450 megahertz, and I was so happy with that.
There's no chance that was the last 5 years.
No, I was just saying that, like, that level of joy and happiness, it just was like, this computer's just doing everything that I could possibly, I'm throwing everything at it, and it just doesn't even care. It's just shrugging it off. I had that experience again with Threadripper. The 3rd gen Threadripper, like throwing that at 3rd gen Threadripper is just like, this is a ridiculous amount of computing horsepower, and this is an absolute joy to use. And that, I don't know, other than that, because, like, it just does everything.
Most cringe-inducing duct tape and bubblegum fugly hacks. Stuff that's embarrassing but works well enough. I think most of what we've done in that regard is what we were basically made to do at gunpoint. Like, someone says it has to do this, and you give them 20 reasons why it shouldn't do that. And they're like, no, it has to do that.
Yeah, and then you end up doing it anyway. And then later they're like, why did you do that?
And it's like, well, here's the messages where we told you that was not going to work. Yeah, I'm thinking of a particularly long CSS file on a website because everything had to be pixel perfect. And then they were like, why is everything loading so slow?
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of thing. But it's, mostly at this point, hopefully we only do that when we're made to.
Yeah.
Because that is an important lesson of, hey, you learn early on, it's like, hey, I can make this work and it'll be fine. And then 4 years down the road, you have to go back and deal with it.
And maintain it, yeah.
And it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
I've created Frankenstein's monster. I can't put it back in, and now I've painted myself into a corner by doing dumb things at the behest of someone else.
When you get forced into that situation, always make sure you've got documentation that the person asked you to do it that way, so that way when they start to point their finger at you, you can be like, well, technically, I told you this was a bad idea. Here's where I told you that.
It's never a good idea to point out, like, nobody ever remembers that way. It's like, here, remember that time that you failed and got it wrong? And even if you have it in black and white, they still don't remember it that way.
Yeah, and it's like, but at least if you have it in black and white, there's some sort of paper trail.
What's the worst project you've ever worked on, and why was it the worst? I don't know if it was the worst, but there was this project that we had, and the people were just completely out of their mind. And it was a very complex problem. It had to do with deliveries and subscriptions.
Is this the one I'm thinking of? Do I know which one you're talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I thought that would end well. It did not.
and
No, it was weird.
the crazy thing about it is they had these rules that were literally like,
When the moon is full and the goat's blood has been produced.
we run this route except on Wednesdays when we run this route. So on Wednesdays, we need to deal with this. Oh, and by the way, we have these customers that are already existing customers. They get 10% off, but I'm not going to give you a list of them. And it actually worked in the end.
Yeah.
It wasn't pretty. It didn't, it was not something I was proud of, but it worked.
It was usable.
And they rejected it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the meeting at the rejection meeting, it was like, it doesn't work. And I was like, let me show you why it does work. And then like the assistant person went through everything and was like, yeah, we did tell them that. Yeah, that is a rule that we have. And I was like, if it has to do X and it has to do Y, then it must do Z. You have to ask them for Z. And it's like, well, we don't want that. I was like, that's fine, but we're going to charge you more to make that change.
It was a weird project.
It was a very weird project.
They have a website now, but it doesn't do any of the stuff that they asked for.
In the end, they were satisfied with WooCommerce. So they didn't need anything at all special other than to go through the misery of like making someone suffer.
And to go, I mean, the system, it considered where you were, where your closest pickup location would be, what days you wanted things on. I mean, it was full featured.
Insane.
It was amazing.
But I had trouble filling out orders, and I built it. And we were like, you can't keep throwing new options to your user. They're going to be confused by this. Also, the business model was
bizarre.
insane.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about that? I want to do a video on the one that we did that tied in with the mainframe. Remember that one? Because it actually worked. It would have saved tens of millions of dollars a year. We could pinpoint failures in the whole order pipeline for the thing. And
you're talking about the EDI thing?
Yeah. And it was it was successful. We succeeded where Boeing and Lockheed Martin failed. And then I could think, in retrospect, it's like, did they really fail, or did somebody not want them to succeed? Because we succeeded.
When will level 2 text return? I was excited about trying to make things funny, but I don't know if we ever got any real return on investment for that. It's a little bit of a humorless audience.
From it.
It is a little bit of a humorless audience.
As illustrated by the next post, which is still replying to other questions.
Well, do you want to tease the thing that you're working on?
No. I think that's a mistake every time. Is it necessary to do a fresh install when upgrading motherboard and CPU or GPU? No. But it is often cathartic and convenient to do so.
Yeah.
Best way of reinstalling without disrupting my intricately hoarded programs. Well, with Windows installed programs, you're not going to be able to do this, but you should store everything on a secondary drive that you want to stay the same. But for the most part, modern Windows, you can just swap them out. Do you believe VFIO is the way forward, especially with anti-cheat detecting other kinds of video pass-through? I think every advancement in that area, the cheaters will take advantage of. So no, they'll find a way to break whatever it is.
Yes, absolutely.
Will home lab people ever get a consumer GPU that can do SR IOV?
It doesn't look that way.
What would be their motivation to do that?
People demanding the feature, but people don't know to demand it.
What percentage of the people are demanding that feature? 0.002?
Yeah, I mean, it's a...
So it's you're not enough of a market segment for them to care.
In a lot of our videos, we said things like people should demand security. Like, wouldn't you like to have a home computer where you could have a little icon that would go into like finance mode, and then everything that was in the finance mode sandbox had its own encryption, and it couldn't see the applications in like gaming mode, and that's how you could sell that to people. But nobody is going to proactively do that.
You'd have to make it really easy.
Yeah.
And
It's doable. It's that easy in the enterprise. That's why it exists in the enterprise.
But I'm saying like it would have to be, they would have to put enough effort into it to make a consumer friendly version of it, and then they're going to sell 10,000 units.
Stadia is basically that.
Stadia's a massive failure. They just gave up on it.
Yeah.
Rip.
Well, they gave up on making their own games. They've still got other people's games.
Have you seen all the stories about more and more developers are getting out of their non-disclosure or something, and just they're talking about how it is absolutely a nightmare,
Nice.
and they're so happy to be away from it.
Well, the Terraria guy certainly still not happy since his Google account is still banned. Sorry, guy.
This person is literally asking for a specific monitor stand. Come on.
Space Co?
Don't answer that.
Don't.
Any opinions on Linux phones and the idea of mobile desktop convergence? Have you never watched the Level 1 News? Because I think Wendell does that speech at least once per week.
Yeah.
About wanting the.
I've got the Pine phone. I don't have the review yet though, but it's coming. Thank you, kind sir, for sending that.
What was the first computer that you had access to? Not a computer at school, but at home, family member or friend. Commodore 64.
I think it was a Tandy that was wrecked. I had to figure out how to. The hard drive had bad sectors on it, and if you just installed DOS, it wouldn't install because the bad sectors happened to be like wherever DOS would try to install on a clean hard drive, it would go to the same place every time. So I had to figure out how to like low-level format it with a special utility to mark the sectors as bad, which took a very long time because I had no idea what I was doing.
We had a basic bitch Dell on a Walmart desk. Windows Millennium Edition.
So you were at Pentium at that point, probably?
Probably.
It was
It had
Commodore,
Microsoft Encarta on it.
Commodore Apple II, and then I got a 386 that was a
That's quite an upgrade.
a Ford assembly plant cast off.
So it was probably well obsolete by then.
Oh yeah. And then but I think I kept using that one. I put a Voodoo 2 in it, and I could play the games.
We had one of those we had like the coal fair where there was cash prizes. I worked my ass off for those to get money to buy better parts for the computer.
How did you win a cash prize?
Well, that was what the thing was. There was like, tell us why coal is amazing.
And you were like, oh, I'll do that all day.
What if you had like a non-trivial effect on the environment just to get your computer?
This water tastes great. It's just black and slurry.
Chris's artistic skills. Could a T-shirt be designed with "buy" written on the back?
Yeah, we could do that. There was another request later in the thread, I think, for a boiler snake tee, which I also need to do. We have like 8 in the pipeline right now.
When I picture boiler snake, I picture a radiator with a snake's head and a snake's tail. Did you guys picture that? And I think that would be hilarious on a polo shirt instead of the tiger or whatever.
Oh,
But
yeah, it's just like the little thing in the top, the embroidery.
The amount we'd have to invest in getting the embroidery done and stuff, like I don't think we'd ever sell those.
I requested from our printer actually some info about embroidery, but he hasn't responded yet. So we may be doing some more embroidery stuff. We'll have to see how expensive it is.
Programmable embroidery. We are working on some new merchandise, but I question. It's so obscure. All of our stuff is so obscure. We are ourselves so obscure.
Yeah, we got to try to think of designs that don't reference us directly.
Yeah.
Because buy is iconic for a very small amount of people.
Meanwhile, teaching Sam to think was a mistake is probably our best-selling product ever.
It is. Which you would think would be a little bit obscure, but people liked that. I never know. I never know what you guys are going to buy, but we do have like 8 T-shirts that are at the printers right now.
You don't have to know us to appreciate teaching Sam to think was a mistake.
What piece of kitchen tech that you cannot live without today, or you didn't have a decade ago?
This is just bait.
Air fryer?
Yeah, air fryer. Air fryer is
they're both gonna
amazing.
say air fryer.
It's incredible.
It really is.
It's an incredible invention. And I was a big air fryer questioner, skeptic.
Air fryer biscuits are definitely not a thing, though. But the potato button, I'm all about the potato button.
Now, you said you had like the special pan for the baking, and it's still, wow. I was okay with cinnamon rolls, but I guess they are like much more moist.
The biscuits did not turn out. I wonder if there's a biscuit button that will turn off the fan, because at that point it's just a mini oven.
East or West Rome? Are we talking about Constantinople and Old Rome?
I literally don't get it.
Well, but in the end, West Rome fell before East Rome. I guess is.
East Rome also has some pretty cool artwork.
They had a cool library. Why did you not work full time for a company in San Francisco or New York City?
Cost of living.
Little bit of an attention deficit problem. Can't focus on one thing for a long period of time.
Yeah, Wendell is definitely like, if he had gone into a corporate environment, he'd be in a basement somewhere and be
making noises like
yeah, and they would have never used him to any kind of.
You'd be the IT
capacity.
wizard. They like want to get rid of you, but they can't.
I don't.
You know where the bodies are.
No, I don't think it would even go that way. He would completely miss the whole corporate ladder navigation, and he would piss off his supervisors by proving them wrong without even considering it. And he would end up in the basement.
Yeah. I also like sleep schedule and like doing the regular 9 to 5. Like, I don't know if you realize this, but I did the regular 9 to 5 the year from almost 2 years, from senior in high school to like sophomore in college. And, doing the like 9 to 5 thing in a very corporate job is something that I still think about today to motivate me to do things that I don't really necessarily want to do, just because it's like, well, that's still on the table. And it's like, nope, I'm good. I'll do this. Because I'm much more functional if the day is a little bit flexible. So like if I can stay up all night and then also sleep a little bit the next day, if I'm in the middle of working on something, it's fine. So if I can work continuously on something for a block of time because I'm in the zone and everything is aligned and I have everything that I need, I can do that. And it's very nice and productive. And like normal day structures for things, it just doesn't work out. And then some days are sliced into just little tiny 15-minute slices. And I don't really like those days as much. But if I have some control over juggling that out on my own, though. And so there's literally nothing else you can get to do that other than consulting.
So I don't even have to ask Krista this question. I know the answer is no, but the real question is, which of us would be more opposed to it? Krista, if you ever have a kid, would you make me a godparent?
No, absolutely not. I wouldn't do that because you would hate it. Like, why would I ever put you in that position?
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, like why?
I'm really, one of the things, as I descend into my second half of life, one of the things I really try to be honest with myself about is like, okay, you got to know your own limitations. You got to know when it's better for you not to do something. Child rearing? No. I would make really, there is a tiny ember of like, imagine if Krista had like a daughter and then something happened to him and I had to raise them, the misery. But at the same time, that tiny ember is like, what if I had a little gun-loving libertarian Hellcat and just unleash her on the public school system? How hilarious would that be? But I'd probably get arrested.
You'd have to homeschool them eventually,
It's even worse.
Yeah.
Move to another country. What would you consider? Gun laws, which is why I would never do it.
Yeah, gun law and healthcare.
But healthcare is always going to be better.
Yeah,
Not always.
Healthcare here is garbage.
Not always. That's true.
I would consider climate and like, could I get like property there? Would I be likely to be left alone?
Am I always going to be a second-class citizen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
but
kind of
also,
thing. Could you assimilate?
I like to watch videos about people who go to, like expats who go to these little South American countries and live for almost nothing. But the real thing to consider there is you have to be very aware of where you can't go.
Yeah.
As a white American, without, it's just there's gonna be like homing knives, just coming for your organs, because that's how it is. I would really be concerned about that. Wendell, you mentioned a script for getting Linux machines working.
Oh, it's just a configuration file, like your vimrc and your your bash RC, and a whole bunch of other things, turn on history logging to just log all the commands you type. You can actually make it group your commands, the stuff that you do, by like the date, which is really actually pretty handy. And so you get one file for every day of the week.
The history is a huge crutch if you're just getting into Linux.
Yeah.
That is something you definitely want to learn how to search it. Learn how to grep your history.
Now, what did I type? And what, you're working on that, right? That's a thing that I'm keep trying to hint that we're going to tease.
Oh, yeah. Which we've kind of already done. What's Wendell's favorite kind of tea?
Black tea?
That's a basic. Not the Taiwanese. I guess that's still black tea, though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I like that. I don't have any. I've been out of Taiwanese tea for over a year.
Favorite books? That's a tough one.
The Silmarillion, the Bible, which is, a basic answer.
I think if I had to just come off the top of my head choose one, I would choose The Road by Cormac McCarthy. That was a book where when I put it down, I was shook.
I don't know.
I like What Are People For by Wendell Berry as well. That's also a great book.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like the Asimov books mostly for fiction. I don't read a lot of fiction books.
Favorite piece of technology? Mine's the transistor.
Well, how could you go wrong? They're in everything, whether it's, a thin film transistor or a silicon transistor or a power, just how could you go wrong?
EMP?
Yeah.
I don't know. Flushing toilets is really nice. Since working on my house, I have a new appreciation for a properly
plumbing,
flushing
yeah.
toilet.
Can't we go even further back than that and say running water?
Yeah.
I think I would rather have a flushing toilet than running water.
How are you going to have a flushing toilet without running water?
Well, you could collect your own rainwater
No,
and
I suppose that's
that kind of thing. Like if I have to
Hand
pour
flush.
a bucket to flush the toilet, I would be okay with that. But just the magic of the toilet dealing with all that for me is amazing.
I don't have any water in my basement, but it's a finished basement, and it is a pain to lug water up and down those stairs to clean it.
Yeah.
You don't think about how convenient it is to have a.
I thought you had a floor drain there somewhere. If you got a floor drain, you can fix up some stuff.
No, not in the inside. There might be one in the. I don't even think there's one in the garage.
I thought there was one where your hot water heater was.
Maybe, but I mean, I'm not gonna deal with that yet.
Well, if you want to put a mop sink in there, that would be easy to tie into that.
Favorite. Did you, Krista? What's your favorite piece of technology?
My favorite food, my mom's fried chicken.
No. Your favorite piece of technology.
Oh, piece of technology. Honestly, yeah, like modern plumbing is kind of a big deal. I kind of agree with Wendell. I was reading, I think that in the woods of our property, I think that there is a seep back there, maybe like an underground spring or something. And I was reading about how you develop that, and I was like, God, that sounds like a pain in the ass. I'm so glad we just have running water in the house.
Yeah, getting water was a big part of. I mean, like the settlers and
aqueduct.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite food? All right, Christy, you say fried chicken.
Yeah.
This is a tough. I'm never able to answer this question.
It's hard because it depends too on like what meal it is. Because I also really like breakfast foods. Like oatmeal is fantastic.
Today, my favorite food is biscuits and gravy. That might not be the same tomorrow, but that's usually in the top 10.
It is such a good one. And the great thing about what I like about biscuits and gravy as your favorite food is like that's one of our people's foods.
Yeah. That's hill people food.
And the fun thing about that is a lot of people hear that and they're just repulsed by the idea of it.
Yeah.
But it's and it really is just
so good.
fat. It's fat and bread. And oh my God.
Well done. It is a level of delicious. You also have to have the bacon grease or the sausage grease. Like the correct biscuits and gravy that I'm picturing in my head is sausage gravy, but it's the very particular kind of sausage, and the grease went into making the gravy.
Can you make biscuits and gravy without? That's why I said it was basically just fat.
Yeah, no, you can make biscuits and gravy without the sausage part of it. You could use lard or something like that.
Oh yeah,
No, you gotta do it with sausage. That's the way my mom did it.
Favorite constellations? I'm gonna go with Orion's Belt.
Oh, that's like the easy one. That's the only one I could think of.
The Dippers.
Big Dipper.
The Dippers are the
Big
big
Dipper.
One.
Now Wendell doesn't have one to pick.
It's not a constellation. It's the Andromeda Galaxy.
That is not an accurate answer to that question.
Everyone judging.
Have you ever built a Hackintosh?
Yes.
Yeah, there used to be one in the office that we used for testing. Is that still operational? I think we got an actual Mac, didn't we?
We have 4.
Whatever happened to dot dot?
It's in the conference room. It works.
Uh,
What do you think has been helping me buy GPUs and CPUs for the last 6 months?
Krista, did you ever read the Wheel of Time series?
Oh, that's a good series.
I think my husband has been reading it though.
I haven't read all those. I started because people were into those, and I was like, I'll read this. And I was like, okay, this is an enjoyable fiction book, but then I never went back to it.
I read up until whatever they were when I was in college, but I've never finished them. I don't know if I ever want to. I don't like the fact that the other guy finished the series. Or some good alternatives to replace the cloud backup for Google Photos and Plex camera roll. You do it yourself, right?
Yeah, like OwnCloud, Nextcloud, actually. Nextcloud is what I meant to say there. The Synology videos that we've been doing, there's a thing in Synology where you can just log into your Google account from the Synology and it'll download it, which is bananas.
This person asked 2 questions, but this one's actually not bad. Honest opinion about aliens from another planet and the U.S. cover-up. I don't know. I'm torn between they couldn't possibly keep it a secret that long and then finding out things that the government kept secret for a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it is inevitable that there is extraterrestrial intelligence. I don't necessarily think that it's inevitable that they visited Earth, but if they had visited Earth, I think that everybody would keep it a secret.
And are they anything like humans at all? Like when we say intelligent life, are they intelligent in the way that humans are?
And are they carbon-based?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, then we might have no idea what we're looking at. Yeah, it seems overwhelming that it has to exist, but a lot of people, I think, underestimate the size of the universe and this idea that we have to find each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really just...
Are they friendly or not? It's like, I don't, friendly is probably not the right way to describe it. Does Earth have anything they need? And the answer is probably no.
When you go to a new restaurant, do you normally get an item that you're familiar with, or do you get what they're known for?
I usually get what they're known for.
I really don't. I just get whatever I think sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, to an extent that. I mean, sometimes if you don't have any idea, though, don't you usually ask, like, what's popular?
For fast food, I have learned, like there are certain things that you never get the fish sandwich at McDonald's. Not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just because they sell like 5 in a day. So it's been sitting there with tartar sauce on it for hours.
But that makes it taste more better. No, that doesn't. It's very bad.
I'm not doing a post that size. Look at this one. Jesus.
It's very specific.
Favorite drinks? We don't drink alcohol all that much.
Diet orange soda is no longer available.
That's so crazy.
I like
finally found some cat food. What'd you say, Chris? I'm sorry, I talked over you.
Gotta drink that seltzer water. I really like LaCroix's like berry flavors. They're really good. But I don't buy the LaCroix very often. This is off-brand.
I drink
it's expensive.
99% of the time I just drink water. And it's always Nestle water. I rotated out some Ice Mountain yesterday from my pandemic stash because I've got a first in, first out water situation. And I realized I was like, I need to rotate some of those old ones out. And I don't like it. There's a difference in the taste.
I like unsweetened iced tea. I've been drinking a lot of that and a fair bit of coffee.
Yeah, coffee's good too. I usually have a cup of coffee in the morning.
I think you probably can get diet orange soda now, but there was probably 6 months or so there during the pandemic where you couldn't get it.
These people are just having a conversation in our Q&A thread. Why Libri?
The SEC? The SEC won't let us be.
Wait, what?
The SEC won't let. It's did you see the Saturday Night Live cryptocurrency skit?
I don't want to say it out loud.
It was what's the rap song that has the lyric that goes, "It feels so empty without me"?
Eminem.
Yeah, so they did a cryptocurrency song to the tune of that, talking about the SEC and cryptocurrency, and they did a nice job with it.
But Eminem was talking about the FCC, so they changed 2 letters.
They did a good job. It was amazing.
What's that got to do with Libri?
LBRY, the SEC has shut them down because they're securities fraud.
What were they selling?
Because it's a coin. I think that's.
I think they're just talking about the video hosting.
Yeah, but if you you get a mining, there's a cryptocurrency component to it.
Do you like Indian food?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. It is delicious.
That's the one of the funniest things. I think we've told this story before, but like when Krista started, we had to tell her, it was like, listen, we go to the Indian restaurant like twice a week and no one likes it except Wendell. But he loves it so much that we don't want to tell him that.
It's fine. You didn't have to do that. It was okay.
But you really like that restaurant.
I remember I was like terrified too, because I was like, you guys started inviting me to go to lunch and I was like, should I do this? Is this a thing? Do people go to lunch together? Because I was so shy and I just like didn't talk the whole time. And Wendell got up to get something from the buffet and you guys leaned across the table and you guys were like, yeah, we don't like this restaurant. And I was like, is this a trap? Like what's happening right now?
I did not know that Amber's forum account is the best level 1 intern. I mean, that's presumptuous.
It is. I mean, we've only got the one, but
Still.
It'll be nice when the pandemic's over. Maybe we can all go to lunch again and then know what everybody else is working on instead of having this weird sort of like web page that we update.
Do you have any regrets about career/professional choices you've made? Not right now. Sometimes in the moment.
Yeah.
Are there
I don't
any
think I have anything
choices
major.
that you're happy you made? Yeah, I think we have a much, like Wendell was saying before, the other route was probably way more corporate, and I don't think I would have worked well in a corporate environment.
I was able to keep it together in the corporate environment, but there was a lot of weeping in the shower.
The place I was working at it wasn't super corporate, but it was all women. There were 2 males there, of which I was one, and there was a lot of, like, they crapped on us just because of that. And one time,
reverse sexism.
Like, the moment
it's not
that
fun, is it?
yeah, when I realized what was going on there, like she sent a memo, and this was a small company. There were like 12 employees, not counting some of the temporary hires. But we got like this professional printed memo, and it was like, hey, we need to make sure that the upstairs windows are closed at all times. And guess who the only 2 employees upstairs were? And then that same day, you know, my phone rings and I pick it up and they're like, oh, hey, we need to move a bunch of stuff over to the conference center. And I was like, why are you asking me that? Is there something about me that makes me more suited to that?
Wow.
But, yeah, I think, well, Krista, what about you?
Professional choice. I'm also glad that I don't work in a really corporate environment. I did that for a while as well, and mine wasn't too bad. It was mostly like older folks. So like sometimes you'd get cookies in the conference room on Friday that some of the old ladies would bake. But everything had such a set process. Like you couldn't just send a file to someone. It had to be done this very certain way and CC'd a certain number of people. And you know, you did the whole 9 to 5 thing. And it was just like, I don't want to do that again.
Sometimes with what we do, it feels like it's easy to get comfortable. Like you could do something that would be really amazing, but it's going to take a little bit of work to break through, and it might not be worth it to do the work to try to break through if it doesn't end up being amazing or it's not as interesting as you think. So sometimes it's easy to get comfortable, and it's like, I'm not really going to do anything different. I'm just gonna coast with with what exists. And I don't know if in a more corporate environment it would necessarily work the same way.
I remember another thing about that job is I was swapping out a power supply and one of the computers that was dead one time in the call center, and one of the other women that worked there walked by and said good morning to me, and I was just like nodded my head, and apparently she didn't see that. And I went about my business, and then later there was like a sit down. Like, why didn't you say?
You just did the nod.
Why are you ignoring? Are you mad at her? And I was like, what? I don't understand. But that had to be a thing, and that's the kind of thing that we definitely don't deal with here.
Yeah.
I mean, Krista made somebody cry.
That was not someone. That would probably be my only real career regret, I would say. I don't think I was wrong in the moment, but I was probably maybe a little too aggressive in the moment.
What do you plan to do when you retire? I'm hoping that, like, social media and gaming technology are just mind blowing at that point, and I can just have fun doing like Feature Man.
Just put on your helmet and just be like, all right, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and just have all that free time to, and we'll probably, if we're still doing this at that point, I'm sure we'll have a little bit of an audience that we can still, even if we're just Twitch streaming or whatever.
Yeah,
and that'll be fun when you're old, I think.
Yeah, it is really completely crazy. I don't know what we would do. Like, what if we suddenly had way more free time to do this kind of stuff? What would we actually do that's interesting?
I'm sure we could come up with something.
I would like to do gardening content, but I don't know how much of a market there is for that on our channel.
I don't know what the question is.
Yeah, I'm trying to parse that one.
I don't understand that. This one is for Ryan, West Coast or East Coast?
Oh, I skipped that one. I assume he's talking about rap. As a kid, it was all West Coast. I did discover Biggie Smalls later, and I have to admit, he might have been the best. But overall, West Coast was way better. Talking about 90s here. I don't know about today. How far do you guys think it's too far to tinker with hardware and software when you need to get a machine to get work done? Yeah, I think this is something that Wendell and I differ on greatly.
Yeah.
Because he will never stop. And I'm much more pragmatic when it comes to that. It's like, if we are spending time solving a problem that ultimately could be solved by just doing this other thing, then we don't need to invest that time.
Yeah.
That's like when we have a problem with the stream sometimes. Like, Wendell's like, oh, now the real game begins. And the rest of us are like, we just want to stream.
And Wendell loves taking a system that works and replacing it with one that doesn't.
But he could with a little bit of work.
This is a question we got every time we've ever done anything like that. And that is like, is college worth it? And right now, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
The nice thing about college is theoretically you have access to smart people, but in practice, in this job market, a lot of the people that are working at higher education are the people that otherwise, don't want to work in the industry. And so that's kind of weird. But also the expense is really, really high. Like, there's something to be said for somebody trying to give you an education that is academic instead of like, let's do this boot camp thing. So, some people in our audience did the boot camp thing, and everybody I followed in the audience that's done the boot camp thing, it's not been great.
Yeah.
Well, it's because of that whole like guaranteed job placement, and they end up putting you in a job where you can't even make the payments.
Yeah.
And it's usually terrible, and it's kind of like a little bit of a slavery type thing. So
I mean, college, you have the same risk though, because it is so expensive now.
And it's
it's
mutated too.
Yeah.
I really was glad that I went to college because I feel like I learned a lot, but like with the expense, I don't know that I would recommend it to someone younger.
And the other thing, I feel like we're not well suited to answer that question because we have not firsthand dealt with the modern hiring policies.
Yeah.
In the past, I would
It's been
say,
several years.
and this goes back to like how do I start? How do I get started working on things? And obviously, open source is something that you can try. You probably get your hand smacked a couple of times, but that's a learning process too.
Yeah.
But if you could walk into an interview and say, here's my contribution to X project, and here's
That is worth a lot.
but is it in the modern hiring? Are you ever going to get in that room?
I think that is more in the modern hiring process than it's ever been.
You think so? You think the AI can do that?
Krista?
For design work, especially, like, it doesn't matter as much if you go to a really fancy school or anything. All that back in my day, recruiters and stuff wanted to see was your portfolio. Is your portfolio good? Do you have a wide variety of work? Can you work in print? Can you work in web? Everything else is just kind of a bonus. But I don't know if it's that way anymore.
You also, I would, probably the best way to do that, and I don't know what the exact path is, but you need to go through one of those alternate paths and try to meet the person who can get you hired. Like that kind of networking.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're going to have to fight with those recruiters and AI hiring bots and resume submissions. And that's like, you never want to go through the front door if you can possibly help it.
Are you even slightly neuroatypical? Good luck getting a job.
That's actually how I got found for this job. Was a friend of mine was doing some work on a responsive website and he couldn't figure it out, and he was like, "Can you help me with this?" And I helped him fix it. And then he's like, "You should apply here." And I was like, "We'll see." And then I did.
And you've been regretting it ever since.
Ever since. No, it's fine. I'm glad I work here.
Curious how everyone got started doing what they're doing. I think it's and we've kind of already answered this one, but I think the whole idea of the internet, YouTube, social media connectivity is good in one way, but it's bad in another way. And I bet Wendell has this same experience. Part of what got us into this, and actually you covered it a little bit earlier, was not having, like, we knew these things existed, and when we got our hands on them, we were like, oh my God. But what we got was just kind of garbage. And it had to be fixed and cobbled together with no help whatsoever. And then eventually you generally found somebody who already knew a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And they taught you stuff. And it was this whole organic thing. But I think a big part of that was boredom, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have anything else to do. And modern kids, they're never going to experience that.
Everything's competing for their attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was literally nothing to occupy my attention except reading books and dial-up BBSs. Literally nothing.
Yeah. And then the internet came about, but that was also a learning experience.
Yeah.
But once as you were fed little pieces like that, it was amazing in terms of motivation. So I don't know. How would you simulate that? Is it possible? I don't know if it's possible.
I don't know. I mean, part of the reason that I made as much progress as I did is because the people that I was interacting with didn't have any idea how old I was either. And when they became aware of that, like how they dealt with me changed completely. And so I feel like a lot of that prepared my brain to be more ready to do stuff quicker than it otherwise would have been because of the way that they conducted themselves and all this other kind of thing. So I think that was handy because I was able to learn more stuff faster. I wish I'd had it sooner, in fact.
This one is a very long-winded way of saying, do you plan to keep doing this? I think we would have to tranquilize Wendell to stop him from doing this at this point.
Yeah.
And
at the same time, it seems like we've grown enough that, there is, we're overdue for some kind of like next stage of evolution, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I do enjoy this a lot. And I enjoy being exposed to new technology, and I enjoy being on like the early list for like, oh my gosh, there's a new this or a new that, or does Linux work on this new toaster? It's like, I don't know. I really want to figure that out. I really love that.
You love being an insider.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's obvious. But no, I don't. I'm sure that Krista and I both don't have the zest for it that Wendell does, but also I think a lot of that is. The channel is kind of like geared toward one thing and always been one thing, and it's pointless for us to do that when he's doing it. So I don't know. There might come a day, and if Crystal gets pregnant, forget it.
Like I said, I've talked about wanting to maybe expand into a little bit of gardening stuff. I think would be interesting. I don't know again if there's a market for that, but
there definitely is somewhere.
Yeah. I also really enjoy the streaming component of what we do. Like, that's probably my favorite part. I really enjoy streaming on Twitch.
I mean, look at what Linus has done. He's got like 50 channels at this point. Everything from movie critic channel to like, I don't know. I don't know what they all are, but there's like 12 of them at least.
He's got a pet one. I've looked at the dog one before.
Yeah, so I think gardening, I don't think that's a big deal. I think you could totally do that.
Well, look out for that shot.
104 posts. A lot of them were bad posts, but
and only an hour and a half.
But I will say one thing. There was one question of what questions do you want to ask us, and that question is always ideas for videos. But then the problem is we get responses that are like a lot of these questions where it's like, I have a Lenovo, and then they give the serial
specific
number. No, that's not. That's your problem. They have to have some broad appeal.
It's a tough question, tough nut to crack.
The people that would respond are the people that we don't want to respond. And if you're thinking of not responding because of that, you're the person who should be responding.
You know who you didn't trigger those people with that comment. You triggered the other people.
No. It's the paradox of participation. So you need to let us know. What do you enjoy? I think a lot of people just tune in for our personality, to be honest. I don't think that we could be talking about gardening or
which is amazing. We have horrible personalities.
But I think the news audience and the audience for a lot of the other videos are almost separate, completely separate.
It's getting to be that way, yeah.
And that's probably not a great thing. But
The news people also don't share it with other people.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get it, but yeah.
You know what adds a ton of subscriptions every time that we do a video on it? It's like, look, I built this server with a terabyte of memory, and then we get 2,000 more subscriptions, and it's so paradoxical.
I don't know.
It is raining sideways
That's
outside.
crazy.
It is. The thunder got picked up on my mic a couple times, so sorry for that.
But yeah, an hour 30. I think this is a robust Q&A. Thank you for your
Yeah.
questions.
Woo!
Thank you for
Thank
watching.
you guys.
Thank you.
And
See you next
We'll
time.
see you in 2 years when we do another one.
we might not wait 2 whole years.
You can definitely just ask questions on Patreon and Floatplane. We usually respond eventually.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys.